Well, hello there. So, I actually saw something on YouTube, and I don't remember what I was watching, but apparently it's almost a joke for YouTubers to say "welcome back." So, I'm trying out some different kind of intros to something that's different than "welcome back, everybody." So, there you go. We'll see how this works out. If you guys think that it's kind of stupid to have to come up with something different, or you guys don't mind, welcome back. Or if you have some suggestions, by all means, throw it out there. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We are on issue 18, and I have to say, this issue's magazine is not very exciting. So this might be fairly short. I'll see what I can do to add some excitement. So we're going to go over the Tantive IV, Tantive 4. I always thought it was Tantive, but that would require a T and an A in the middle. So it's Tantive 4. Maybe it was Tantive Eve, as in the IV, but I always heard 4 as well. So how do you guys pronounce it? Let's make that exciting, huh? So this talks about the interior, and the interior, honestly, is the way they break it down is not terribly all that exciting. So, like all Corellian Corvettes, Princess Leia's ship was split into 3 sections: the forward command module, the central section, and the used as living accommodations and consular offices, and the rear section housing the engines and technical systems. So that's exciting. It had a diplomatic staff of 39, crew of 46. We're going to do some simple math and say that's 85 people on this ship. Its passengers are variable, and this one comes with the princess's suite, her secret chamber, stateroom suite, formal state conference chamber, formal dining room, meeting room, the captain's quarters, officers' quarters, crew's quarters, engineers' quarters, officers' common room. Had the passenger quarters, lounges, library, a sick bay, 2 armed 12-seater. Escape pods were 2 armed 12-seaters and 8 unarmed 3-seaters. I'm assuming that the 3-seaters would have been the one that R2 and C-3PO jumped into. So let's go ahead and get going into here. So it just kind of starts breaking down kind of the way that it goes. So essentially there's, 4 levels on this ship. Only one level had a passageway that went all the way from the front to the back, had turbo lifts to go in between the two, and so had a couple airlocks and all that kind of fun stuff. So it had dual roles. It followed the general pattern, although her additional weapons and defensive measures were appropriate fittings for a diplomatic vessel. Similarly, the offices, meeting room, and luxurious accommodations were what would be expected on an Alderaanian consular ship. Leia obviously, she had also been adapted to her secondary role as a rebel blockade runner. So that's one of the reasons why they call it the blockade runner, because that's what it did. It ran blockades. So here we go. It talks about the 4-deck layout, and I'm not going to really go through all that. It had a lot of comfort and conveniences and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, Princess Leia shortly Shortly after becoming Senator of Alderaan, Princess Leia Organa joined the rebellion against the Empire using the diplomatic status of the Tantive IV as cover for secret missions. However, when her ship was captured above Tatooine, Darth Vader brushed aside Leia's claim that she was a member of the Imperial Senate and on a diplomatic mission. Taken for questioning under torture, she was the only survivor, so everybody on the ship got killed. R2-D2 secret mission, so the escape from the Tantive IV. When the Tantive IV was captured and boarded, Darth Vader and Princess Leia stolen plans for the first Death Star inside R2-D2, a starship astromech acting on Leia's instructions. R2-D2. I'm not going to read all that because, I mean, you guys seen the movie. You know what was going on there. Recycling. So this part is actually kind of interesting. So the original Falcon, and we've kind of gone through this a couple times. So the original Falcon had already been built as a highly detailed model, almost 2 meters long, when George Lucas decided that the design of Han's ship needed to be changed. And a lot of that was because of, I can't remember, there was a British TV show or something that came out, and we talked about it in a previous issue, and there was some similarities. Even though they weren't aware of the similarities, there were some similarities between this ship, or what was the Millennium Falcon, and that ship on that British show. So because of that, they decided to change it. While a new Falcon was being built, the existing model was altered to become Leia's ship, which was a much larger vessel. The small cockpit was removed and a hammerhead module was added. Tried out using a pair of paint buckets back to back. To change the scale, the parabolic dish on the top was removed, and the upper escape pods had to become large armed turrets with much smaller pods installed underneath. The model's former star roll meant that it was twice as long as the Star Destroyer that pursued it, and far more detailed. It would be modified yet again for Return of the Jedi, where it appeared as a gunship in the Rebel fleet, but it was restored in the 1990s to join a touring Star Wars museum show. So that's pretty cool. So here is the drawings from 11 December 1975, details on the Millennium Falcon, with significant modifications, including a new cockpit, aerial dish, and extra guns. This ship would become the Tantive IV. So you can see here, let me hold this up just so you can see a little bit better. So you can see here, this is the cockpit when it was the Millennium Falcon, and of course they changed it to what they call the hammerhead. So basically they put it a much different shape. So, but for the most part, the rest of the ship was fairly intact. So there we go. There's the Tantive IV. Sectors of the Galaxy. Again, I don't find this terribly interesting. Basically, the galaxy was split into different sectors, and those sectors would then elect their representatives to the Senate and during the Republic, and then during the Empire, or even during the Clone Wars, they were governed by governors and governor-generals, and they still had senators, but they were kind of the governors/generals were kind of in charge of the defensive aspects and that kind of stuff. It talks a lot about the corporate sector, which anybody that's followed along with the Clone Wars would know a lot of that. During the Clone Wars, most of the corporate sector supported the CIS, which is the Confederate Separatists, right? Confederation of Independent Separatist Planets or something, I think is what it's called. But at the end of the conflict, rather than bringing it under the Imperial control, the Emperor allowed the corporate sector to expand to tens of thousands of systems. These came under the control of the tyrannical corporate sector authority, which operated its own fleet of capital ships. CorpSec absorbed many neighboring systems, and the CSA earned a reputation for its willingness to strip entire worlds of their resources in pursuit of profits. It remained loyal largely to itself, selling goods and services to both the Empire and the Rebel Alliance. While many refugees sought sanctuary there, most discovered that the CSA was as brutal a regime as in its own way as the Empire. So that's kind of significant. So yeah, they basically what this talks about is that a sector essentially consists of about 50 inhabitable worlds, and then it kind of breaks down under sectors and all these things. So basically, they'd have larger sectors that would combine together, and they could be much larger. But yeah, it basically just kind of breaks things down. A little bit of behind the scenes. So information about the sectors of the galaxy has been published in a number of different sources, including Star Wars fiction and reference books. But one of the most important applications is the role-playing and video games. These include the 1998 computer game Star Wars Rebellion, where a key part of the game interfaced with a map showing between 10 to 20 sectors to be explored in the course of the game. Unfortunately, Rebellion's map included numerous errors, which included misplacing planets as important as Coruscant, Kessel, and Chandrilla. So, you'd like to think that they would get it correct. So, that's unfortunate. So again, it just kind of talks about how things got organized, military organization and imperial organization and all that kind of stuff. Sector armies. In the Clone Wars, the Grand Army of the Republic was divided into 10 systems armies with a strength of 294,912 clone troopers, commanded by a high Jedi general. Each was divided into 2 sector armies. The first to the sixth sector armies were designated as reserve commands. The 7th to the 12th were assigned to the northern quadrant of the galaxy, and the remaining 8 sector armies were assigned to the southern quadrant. So, yeah, that's kind of somewhat interesting. Okay, Falcon upgrades. Again, this is something that was not significantly interesting. It does talk about uh, the fact that the Falcon had a lot of modifications that were not very common to be seen in a YT-37 or a YT-1300, and such things as the hyperdrive that originally belonged to a ship that was 20 times the size of a YT-1300. So the interesting thing is that this talks about the fact that being able to put all that kind of stuff in there required, and it wasn't just the Falcon that did it. A lot of smugglers that use YT-1300s would do it, basically because if you're smuggling, a lot of the stuff that you're taking is smaller type contraband stuff. You're not taking large amounts of supplies, big boxes of stuff and whatnot. You wanted stuff that you could hide and easily hide and that kind of stuff. Um, basically, because of that, you can use up some of the cargo space to put in all this extra equipment and all that kind of stuff. Um, so because of all of the modifications and stuff, they were really difficult to work with. And of course, the Millennium Falcon was, as difficult, if not more difficult than any of them, because of all the extensive modifications, and things weren't put where you would expect them to be put, or routed the proper way and stuff like that. A lot of the routing kind of worked its way into the corridors and stuff. Hence, what you see something like this, because that was due to some modifications. So you would see these panels pulled off, and some of the stuff would be routed through there, and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of interesting. A little bit of the behind the scenes. After The Empire Strikes Back, the full-size Falcon was stored for 3 years before it was used to film a sequence for The Return of the Jedi that showed the heroes caught in a sandstorm after they destroyed Jabba's sail barge. This had to be cut from the finished movie, and as the Falcon proved too costly to move in the rest of the film, her appearance in the live action were all achieved by using matte paintings, including the deleted scene below. I don't even remember that deleted scene. That's and I've watched them all. I do remember watching the uh, dust storm one, the sandstorm one. So, um, but the set was eventually broken up, and parts that could not be recycled went into a giant bonfire. So that's pretty unfortunate. So it talks about the matte, it being used as matte scenes and that kind of stuff. The one that always pops out to me is um, when they're planning the attack on the Death Star, and Han is talking to Lando, and he's telling, "No, I want you to take her." And he's like, "Promise me though, not a scratch, right?" And they're standing there in the docking bay of whatever ship they're on, and there's the Falcon in behind them, and it doesn't take a very keen eye to notice that behind them is a matte scene. I mean, it's just not that good, and that was pretty common for movies back in the day, to use a matte painted scene. Um, but that one was always pretty obvious to me. So maybe not when I was a little kid, but as I got older, I noticed it pretty readily. That is a pretty good paint job right there, though. That one, this one looks pretty realistic. Get this in the camera view. There we go. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, since I've moved my desk, my my monitor, I flipped it on its side because that's the way I could easily mount it. Unfortunately, it's 180 degrees upside down, and I like it being on its side because that actually has the proper orientation of the video. Excuse me, the video for me. And so, but the problem is everything's upside down. So when I try to lift up the magazine, to show everything, when I move it, you notice, like, when I try to move it, if I'm looking at the screen to put it in view, I go the wrong direction sometimes because it's all upside down. So, yeah, unfortunately, that gets to be a bit of a problem. The Millennium Falcon internal configuration. Uh, this cutaway 3D drawing shows how the extra fittings and upgrades were crammed into most available corners of Falcon internal spaces. The most prominent example is the massive hyperdrive installed in the engine room, but extra equipment is scattered all over the ship, with the systems inside the mandibles only accessible through awkwardly constricted maintenance crawlways and access hatches. Those not familiar with the Falcon layout would find confusion at every turn, and Han Solo was very careful who he let tinker with the mechanics or even operate the ship. So, yeah, we're all very aware of that. And this here talks about the fact that the Rectana is something that Han Solo added and is not a common thing on a YT 1300. So that's pretty cool. Then we get into all this kind of stuff. And the final part, I found this one of the more interesting things. So the bottom of the Falcon hull is much less detailed than the top and is far less frequently seen in the movies. The design of the ship was based on the first filming miniature built by ILM, on which most of the small plant-on details were applied to the top of the hull. In many scenes featuring both this and the latter miniature made for Empire Strikes Back, the brackets used to mount the model during the blue screen filming were fitted underneath, just as when the original was made in the ILM workshop. The relatively smooth underside of the replica makes it far simpler to work on your model. Almost all of the small, delicate components are fitted inside recess areas where they are not vulnerable to being damaged. So, uh, one that shows how they mounted it when they're doing the blue screen stuff. They would put it on here, and they could, bend it and all that kind of stuff. But these recesses, it's very important that it mentions that, because that is, I think, what we're going to be working on. One of those recesses here, we're going to be working on that in the next issue, in issue 19. So there we go. That is the entire, and I even stretched it out, ladies and gentlemen. not a lot of interesting stuff in this magazine. Hopefully the next one's got some more interesting stuff. But I look forward to doing issue 19. That'll be a nice change of pace. I do have another ring to do. We're going to get another walkway. I think this walkway may go to the the cockpit. I'm not sure, but we'll see how that goes. But doing this recess might be pretty fun. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to paint it and get some details in there and all that kind of stuff. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. Comment, let me know about the intro. It doesn't really bother me that much, but I also don't want to say something that everybody else and their brother are saying either, because I want to be a little bit different, right? I'm not a lemming. I don't follow the crowd every time, and by all means, if everybody else is saying welcome back, uh, then I don't want to be doing that either. So, um, yeah. So throw a comment in there. Tell me what you think. I think it's kind of silly in one regard, but at the same time, yeah, I want to be unique. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. So um, hopefully you're looking forward to issue 19, and we'll see how that goes. So I will see you in the next one. May the force be with you always.